race aside. And maybe if we did, we could actually get past race and deal with the issues that are affecting all of us, like classism and foreign entities. And to your point, people at the top controlling these narratives and all this other stuff. But I'm gonna stop because I could go on forever.
But I'm even more confused now because you said that racism is systemic, and then you immediately said the people in the room cannot change this because it's systemic. But then you said we need to move past this issue and start focusing on classism.
And the next prompt is: white privilege is a real and present force in America.
This is one of those
divisive questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Before they speak, this is going to be a good video. This is white conservative women getting into debates with black liberal women. And the prompt that I'm discussing is: white privilege is a real and present force in America. Before this video goes any further, guys, put a thumbs up or thumbs down in the comments if you agree or disagree with this statement. Thumbs up or thumbs down in the comments if you agree or disagree with this statement. Thumbs up if you agree, thumbs down if you say no, that's not the case, I disagree. But let's get into it.
I'm gonna try to be a bridge right now. So this is my thought, and I just want to insert real quick. I don't think Charlie was shot for political violence. I don't put it in that category. I'm a follower of Jesus. I think that he was shot for proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. That is my opinion. So I think we're in a spiritual war. That's my opinion.
So you think it's like religious? It was like a religious violent act?
I think I think we can all contend, be it George Floyd, be it Charlie Kirk, whatever. I think we can all contend that there's evil.
I agree with that. I think there's evil that are greater than anything red or blue, and I think a lot of people aren't ready to have that conversation.
So,
I think foreign affairs have a lot to do with this.
So
I'm not saying anything else
as to
about
how
it.
you categorize what happened with Charlie Kirk.
I don't look at Charlie Kirk's death and go, wow, he was politically assassinated.
That's not your interpretation of it.
That's not my interpretation.
How do you interpret it?
I interpret it as that we are told, Christ was killed because of what he was saying. To say the Jews killed Christ. So he was being disruptive, and he was basically a truth teller and was killed for telling the gospel. Because ultimately, I believe my foundation and my fundamental level that I'm going to derive even my beliefs from, even what I want to answer what the question was too. But I just wanted to insert that because I didn't want to say that.
But do you have an interpretation that's not rooted, like people need to be religious in order to understand what you're saying? Like, do you just have like a...
Well, I think we're in a battle between good and evil. That's what I think. I've seen evil at my door. I've got, for sake of time, I have, I'm not going to sit here and tell you my life story. But yeah, but there is a lot of evil, be it George Floyd, be it Charlie's assassination. And I think that there is a unifying factor, that there is good and there's evil. Now, that obviously goes into, okay, well, what do you define as evil and what do you define as good and all the things, right? So my fundamental level of that comes from, biblically speaking, that's where I go to find my grounding and what I defined as good and evil. So I'm always going to have, if someone's not biblically living their life, we're not going to agree because we're living by two different moral standards, and that's fine. I'm like, okay, that's great, but don't tell me how to live my life. And I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. So that's kind of my thing. This is what I think about white privilege, is that I do believe because of Black history in America, there is generational stuff that that the Black community has had to overcome that the white community has not. Okay, so I want to start there, and I think and I believe that there are things and roads that they're just harder. They're harder to overcome. If my parents were divorced, I am at a disadvantage now to stay married. And guess what? My parents were divorced. I got divorced. And this is, again, I'm going to go to a spiritual aspect, okay? Is the sense that there is generational stuff that each one of us, like if I sat down and had coffee with each one and everybody, we could probably have a really nice chat about, hey, how did you grow up? Like, where did you grow up? What's your family dynamic like? And, I've worked in recovery groups for a long time. And
so what I'm getting from this conversation, and let me know if y'all agree with me, is that historically there is white privilege. That is just the objective truth. Historically in America, there was a literal privilege of being white. and the privilege is that you would not be enslaved. That I don't know how I can get any more real than that. But when I first saw this prompt, I initially looked at it from the presence of today, or at least relatively today, like to us, our parents, our grandparents. That's how I look at it, or at least us and your parents and like their full lives and stuff like that. So if you look at that and you look at what privilege is defined as in America, personally, I look at privilege as finances. I think that's the ultimate privilege, like finances and some education, whether that's in school or whether that's in trade or whether that's just in how to live your life, how to pay taxes, how to do all that stuff. That's education to me. The biggest privilege that you can have to me is how much money does your family make? Like, really, where do you live? What state do you live in? How close do you live to grocery stores? That's privilege. And to me, America focuses more on capital than it ever did race, or not ever did, but ever does race today. And I think that's the privilege. So when I look at white privilege, I don't really agree with its base premise. I think that there's a wealth privilege in a lot of, or there are more predominantly wealthy white families or Asian families, because that's just statistically true. But there's a wealth privilege, and a lot of poor white people are suffering. And when poor white people hear white privilege, it's like it just doesn't apply to them. So the reason why I'm not super for this statement is because in order for white privilege to exist, it has to apply to all the white people. And that statement just does not apply to poor white people. It literally does not apply to them. It applies to rich people and rich privilege and stuff like that. So that's what I think.
Things like that with the crazy spectrum of people from all different backgrounds, okay? But again, I derive my foundation of that. My goal is to make heaven crowded. And I truly believe Jesus is the only way, the truth, and the life. And so I'm always going to come at it from that angle. Now, in saying that, there is a really real overcoming that the Black community had to do. I'm just sorry that is the reality. It's a dark piece of history in America, and be from the Jim Crow laws all the way to the Civil War, everything. I mean, Black Code before they came up with Jim Crow laws and all those things. That is a dark part of the Black community that is ingrained in your guys' history generationally. So there's mentalities, there's abuse, there's things that you guys probably were passed down in your guys' line that weren't passed down in my line. And so I can acknowledge that. Now, I would also come from the standpoint of that once we become Christian and once we meet Jesus, we become new in him. And he can give us newness, and he can break what we have been through and what we've come from. And so my stance will always be to lift people up. Mm-hmm. To a place of equalness. That is my personal way that I operate in my life. I have people all over my life from all spectrums. You know, I just spoke at a gay man's house a couple months ago because I was invited there to, you know, I'm all over the spectrum. So that's why I say, you know, I'm not in a box, I guess, conservatively, because my ex-husband, his parents came illegally to this country. So my kids are half Salvadorian. So I have this I'm a kind of a mutt, like a conservative mutt, where I think a lot of things need reform. I don't like a lot of the stuff in the police department. I am all for, I think that we need to have a strong, police and all those things, but there needs to be reform. There's some really crappy cops out there. And so
I'd like to say one thing. We are sitting with the understanding that there will ever be equality. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that just purely from a race perspective. And when we talk about privilege exists amongst everyone. What tends to be more prevalent is the privilege you see that white Americans would have. If you're looking at, from the lens of someone else. And that's all we can ask, right?
Yeah,
so you look
I guess
through it,
the question was, I think currently, right now, I do not think it is. Currently, in 2025. Now, as I said, where I come from, I can acknowledge that there is a really dark history that the Black culture has had to overcome that I didn't.
I also want to say that everyone has to overcome that because that is America.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not
So
just
the-
because
And that's
I
the Democrat
didn't-
Party.
You're
That was the Democrat Party.
no, that's an
KKK,
American
Jim Crow
problem.
law, slavery was all the Democrat Party.
But you
Okay, again, the senior citizen from the South. I went to private schools. They had the black Catholic school and they had the white Catholic school. The one tuition was one price for the black kids, one tuition was one price for the white kids. And now, 60 years later, what has changed? We still have things. I'm a registered nurse again, but I've had the worst clients with a bachelor's degree in nursing, worst clients with less pay. I had to orient, and they're Christian in me, orient and help white nurses, Hispanic nurses that didn't speak English, Filipino nurses that didn't speak English. I got paid less. So if we talk about money and white privilege, how am I not the supervisor, but I have to train you to be the supervisor?
But also, is it
Well, the reason you're not the supervisor and you have to train someone else to be the supervisor is because you're still doing the job. When people have jobs and you're actively doing the job that you don't like to do, you're going to get what they want to give you unless you demand something else. The reason why they're treating you like that while you're training people to replace you is because you are allowing yourself to be in that position. You can say, I'm not doing that. You can look for other jobs, but you didn't. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to disrespect my elders or anything like that, but that's what's happening. It's capital. They look at money. They like, oh, if you're not going to ask, you're not going to receive. And that statement is kind of true. Not sure what this has to do with white privilege, like the statement white privilege, but let's continue.
You're
White
judging
privilege.
us by our skin color? If you say white privilege, you're assuming because I have lighter skin that I just had it so easy.
That's actually not what the assumption is. It's not even an assumption. You just haven't had to go through any of these hardships because of your skin color.
How do you know that?
Not,
I came from Iran. I came from fleeing a
you're white-
country.
you're white passing.
And by the way, my half sister who lives there, she never plays the victim card. Even
That's
though
great.
she's and let me finish. There's women that can't do the things that we do in this country. And the thing to me, I believe it's a psyop. If you're saying someone has white privilege, what are you saying about people that have darker skin, that they're beneath you? That's called,
Well, let's
to me,
figure
that's
out what
called
she's
white
saying and let her
supremacy.
finish.
Yeah, wait,
That's called white supremacy.
If I can, because like it even goes beyond not being that deep. Like, of course, we all know black men are killed disproportionately than white men by police, and then they're murderers.
They do 60% of the crime. That's a statistic.
Hey, please let me speak.
I know,
You've
but
spoken for like 20 minutes. I've spoken for like 2. There's deep stuff like that. There's real stuff. Communities that are like still trying to get their families out of the trenches because of redlining and, like you said, different tuitions and unequal pay and stuff like that. But then there's even stuff like they just now started making Band-Aids in our skin color. Like it's even as like simple as that. Bandages were made to match your skin tone. For so long, nude was only in your skin tone. Only just now am I wearing a bra underneath this that is closer to my skin tone, but this came out in a lingerie line that came out in the last 10 years.
But that's a corporation. That's not government.
No, but
that's a corporation.
A person is running
you
that.
should tell the corporation we would love to have it in our skin
reflective
color.
of the larger society.
it feels like irrelevant and dumb that I'm like saying this now by itself, but just along with like bandages, but there's also like makeup lines. It was really hard. My mom, when she was learning how to contour her face, we had to use black eyeshadow because there was nothing in her skin tone at all, like her foundation. And then one time I ordered makeup online in my skin tone and they gave me a sample and it was like the lightest sample they had. It's like they weren't even considering that maybe the person who was ordering this wasn't white. And then if you go on set somewhere, the black hairstylists and black makeup artists are always expected to be able to handle everybody. They do everybody's hair, they do everybody's makeup, but...
So what she's saying is that there are inherent privileges to being white, or at least at the minimum lighter skinned in America. And examples of that would be, for example, Band-Aid colors or makeup colors or bra colors, which could be true. I'm sure that there's some level of validity in those statements. I am 100% sure that there's validity in those statements. It would be easier to find makeup if you were lighter skin. I don't want to say white in general because it's not. When I heard the initial statement, I thought she was referring to like white American privilege. But if you're lighter skin, it's probably true. But in reference to the initial statement which they're debating, which is white privilege is a real and present force in America, when you hear that statement, or at least what I interpreted, is that white people in America have a better chance of success. That's what I heard. And I understand I'm looking at it from, a different point of view, but privilege is success. Privilege is a good life. It's a happy life. It's a successful, safe life. That's what the force would be pushing you towards. But she's kind of referencing like band-aids and bras, which is still technically a privilege, but to me is more so a trivial. It's very trivial, if I'm being honest. It's very trivial. And I'm assuming when white people hear this statement, they're not referencing band-aid colors. They're probably referencing tuition payments for their children, or they're referencing the ability to buy a home, or they're referencing the ability to get a job, or they're referencing the ability to save their money, or they're referencing the ability to pay lower tax. Like, that's kind of where I'm getting at, like really serious big things. And what she's bringing up to me is kind of like, yes, it's like, band-aids and stuff, like, it's real life, but it's really trivial. But what do y'all think about this?
White hairstylists have done some crazy shit to my hair. Crazy shit. And said things like, oh, I've never worked with this kind of texture before, even though they're the professional hired to be on set that day. We're expected to do it all.
I will say, I think there's like a privilege, I know that sounds crazy, to being, having to do more than us and having gone through so much. I think that we've heard a lot about spirituality, but I feel like because you guys have gone through so much, there's like an enlightenment to you. I always feel such a drawl and just so seen in a way that I don't feel as much with white people, I would say. So, I mean, I will just say that I feel like you guys are magnets, and I hope that your voice gets heard more, because I think that there has been a lot of trauma of just invisibility, and your way of rising through it and still being survivors and stuff. I don't know, I've always felt like it's been super special, and I'm so thankful for the relationships that I've had.
Shit, not the bridge being built. Not the bridge!
I will never forget, let me just say, when I was younger, I will never forget looking over as a young kid and seeing a black man get out of a Mercedes, and I was like, that's success. And there was just always that vision. And I know it doesn't have to be like a superficial symbol, but there was just something implanted in me as a young kid. And I had a buzzed head when I was young, and I felt like I think I've allowed myself to see that, like, having shorter hair as a female, like, I haven't seen myself a lot on, in the media. And I've heard that be a complaint of a lot of other people of not feeling that represented. So I think kind of feeling othered a lot in my own world in just a small way had made me feel like a kinship. And so I think that while there's privilege to being white, I feel like there's another privilege that doesn't get spoken about, of actually having to suffer, because those are the people that really know how to like have resilience and rise up and actually listen and just thrive. So
I know that we were just celebrating the bridge you made, and I don't want to tear it down, but I think I had a different response seemingly than the rest of the room to that. I know that you mean well by that, and I can see that you're very genuine. I have a really hard time sitting with the idea that the significant trauma that the Black community has experienced in this country has made us enlightened, and that there's like this beautiful spiritual quality that it's given us, because I think it feels, and maybe I'm just speaking to the way that's landed for myself, like a huge bypassing of how genuinely traumatic that is, to be like, well, look at you, like you're radiant now.
No, I'm not saying that.
And this is like and I'm gonna be as polite about this. Y'all be in the comments going harder than me. But this woman, this white woman, tried to build that connection, tried to make a bridge, saying like, yeah, like you guys did have it hard. So like historically, she said that. And when she kind of looked up to black men, for example, when she was younger, she saw this black man get out of a luxury vehicle, and that really inspired her. She said that. And she's trying to basically relate to the black community. And rather than you know, saying, yeah, thank you, or yeah, you're right, like it is motivational, it is inspirational, you completely, literally completely pooped on everything she just said. Immediately. You immediately pooped on everything she just said. So this is where I'm confused. You don't want white people to relate to you. You don't want them to not relate to you. You don't want them to dismiss what you say, but you also don't want them to acknowledge what you say. What do you want? And this is a real question. What do you want? Because she is trying to relate. She really is trying to connect. She doesn't understand a lot of things in the black community. Obviously, the same way a lot of black people don't understand a lot of things in other communities. That's just how life is. You understand your community the most, where you grew up. It doesn't have to be just race, but the community you grew up in, you understand that community the most. And she's trying to really relate and put like, you know, some type of, you know, motivation there or something. And you just pooped on it. And now she's backtracking what she said. She's about to be like, well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this. You just had a beautiful moment and you just got rid of it.
Saying
That's
that like
the way that-
you've been through something, whereas like we're over here and we can, who knows how much we've even been through.
Yeah, and like I'm not.
But you've
disagreeing
also
with
rolled
that.
your eyes at so many people that have been speaking. So I don't know if that's your.
I mean,
your
a lot of
immediate-
really insane things have been said.
I don't know if
but
that's your immediate response is just to roll your eyes. I might not have the best like language with it, but I know that like on a soul level, like I feel I have a lot of awe and respect.
And I
that is-
appreciate that a lot.
Take it where you can get it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. All I'm saying is this idea that somehow having endured what the black community has endured in this country and coming out the other end, barely surviving. There are people right now who are not surviving. That's somehow a privilege is ludicrous. And like maybe what you said completely landed wrong with me, but that's how I took all of that, and that's all.
There is no historical educational context to this conversation, although I appreciate everything every single person has attributed. I genuinely do here about the topic. This is systematic, which means you as individual people may totally not be doing anything at all to perpetuate this. It just is. I have certain privileges. Everybody here has certain privileges. This is systematic. Black women are 4 times more likely to die with anything related to do with maternity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like this is systemic.
Explain
this is,
that.
This
Yeah,
and then
explain
also
that.
too, which I really appreciate you bringing up, and I'm going to connect it. Which I really appreciate you bringing up.
Which part?
About I'm going to tell you
Yeah, I'm
earlier when you
curious.
said the
I've
stuff
never
about
heard
like
that.
Reconstruction and Black codes and Jim Crow, right? Like you were saying all those things. A lot of that stuff. My sister is also a nurse, so like let's say medical documentation for an example. Like this is a little bit of an example, right? It'll say like. For white patients, sometimes, more often than not, by studies in the field, it'll say, this patient, expressed that they had, pain, and they were very agitated because they were in so much pain. For a black patient, it'll say more often than not, this person was aggressive
seeking.
or like med seeking. We need to, you know what I mean? It's like there's always a suspicion because that comes from another lineage. So just as there was so much trauma passed on with us, which thank you for acknowledging, it's true. There was a lot of other stuff passed on to a lot of other people, and that's why we have people marching in the streets chanting that same rhetoric in 2025. And so I think there's this misconception that like if we acknowledge white privilege exists, I went viral for saying that when I was on another platform and they asked me 5 years ago, do white people experience racism? And I said no, because in context, which we don't know and we're not taught, so I'm not mad at anybody here, because as a teacher, I realize the fundamental thing is that we don't know our own history.
Well, and I think she's a smart woman. She's a teacher, but you're kind of contradicting yourself. You opened the statement and said that the racism that the black community experiences is systemic or systematic, is what you said literally. And then you followed that by saying that the people in the room may have had nothing to do with the racist system that we live in. They may have personally done nothing, but then, which you might be accurate, possibly. You followed that statement by saying that white people, specific white people, cannot experience racism. But you initially said the racism was systemic. So are they not allowed to experience any systemic racism? And even if they're not allowed to experience any systemic racism, are they not allowed to experience any personal racism? So the problem that I'm getting with you right now is that you aren't really separating the fact that two types of racism can exist. Systemic racism can exist and personal racism can exist. So you saying that white people cannot experience racism, are you referencing a system, or are you just saying in general they cannot experience it? Because I know for a fact white people watching this video have experienced racism. But, you know, I think I actually want to finish. I want to hear her finish this statement.
As Americans, race aside, and maybe if we did, we could actually get past race and deal with the issues that are affecting all of us, like classism and foreign entities. And to your point, people at the top controlling these narratives and all this other stuff. But I'm gonna stop because I could go on forever.
But I'm even more confused now because you said that racism is systemic, and then you immediately said the people in the room cannot change this because it's systemic. But then you said we need to move past this issue and start focusing on classism. But if it's systemic, how can I move past something if I can't control it? It's not my fault that I'm not participating in it.
Of the population rather than the color of your skin? Could it be like, oh, we're learning how to do hair?
Yeah, but she's sharing
let me
her
finish.
experience.
Let me finish what
I'm sharing
let me
American
finish what I'm
history.
saying. Can I finish my thought, please? So we're looking at the population. The Black community is 13%. So when people are learning to do hair, maybe it has nothing to do with just because you're Black. It has to do with people are learning how to do the majority of the population's
That's always
hair.
been the excuse.
That's true, but
I'm just saying
that's
that
why I
it could
brought
be.
in real
This is what I'm
historical,
saying. But we
systemic,
see
and systematic
everything
examples.
in color. And when I've gone to board meetings, this is what bothers me. I go to a school board meeting, and they talk about white privilege and this. So you're telling my child, who's never been a part of, Jim Crow law, racism, any of this, that she's an oppressor and that Black kids are oppressed. I believe both of them are evil, and I'll tell you why. Number one, how do you keep a person down? You tell them they're a victim, and there's no way of rising
I do agree
up.
with that.
And I think that's a psyop. I think that's
white privilege will
psychological
never
warfare.
stop my Black excellence.
Yeah, let me finish.
So we
I think
agree.
that's a psychological warfare
If they'll never stop you, that, you know what? Whatever.
Against the Black kids, and I think it's also a psychological warfare against white kids because they have to feel shame and guilt of something that they've never been a part of, and it's a divide. Now they're pitting white kids against Black kids. That's wrong because, again, as a Christian, we believe there is no such thing as race. We believe we are all in the image of God. That's why it upsets me, because it is divisive.
But you see how I'm the one that injected that? So I believe that as history, because historically that's what happened. But to say racism was not a construct that came and was implemented and imposed to validate segregation, Jim Crow.
Oh, I think it's awful.
The Reconstruction, all
yeah,
that.
I'm totally against.
No, the lady in the green is totally right. She's 100% right, because you even said that racism was systemic. But if it's a systematic issue, what are white people supposed to do? Like day-to-day white people, what are they supposed to do? Like, genuine question, what are they supposed to do? You said it was a systemic issue. What are they supposed to do right now? Like the women sitting in that room, you're telling them, oh, it's not even you, it's systemic. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? What I'm getting at is that there's nothing that they can literally do according to your logic. And the woman in the green exposed that. She's like, well, it's like an attack on not just Black students, it's an attack on white students, because you're telling Black students that they are that they are being subjected to a lot of racism, but then you're also telling white people that they are imposing racism when white people are like, well, it's just a systemic thing. How am I imposing it? And Black students are like, well, I haven't experienced this, but I've been told I was supposed to experience this. But nonetheless, let me know what you guys think about this video. My name is LFR Jojo.